Welcome to another episode of Those Who Do, the podcast, a podcast about people, their experiences, their uniqueness, and their lives. I'm Zach Barclay, here with the Mick to my rock, Tony Forsmar. David Greenspan is originally from Long Island. He followed a very unique path from Long Island through Japan to Hollywood. Please join us as David talks about his unconventional path from the world of finance to the world of editing and directing such shows as Grey's Anatomy and Station 19. This is Those Who Do, editing and directing for television, with David Greenspan.
They weren't the best of the best.
The asshole shot me with a pellet gun.
We were all equally responsible.
I know, it was all of us, but still, I feel like
No, arm that, hit it twice, arm it once, hit record once to arm it, and then hit it again. No. What are you doing?
Push play.
Hit record
I know.
once, then again. It should be going. There you go. There we go. That doesn't surprise me that you would get somebody's car towed.
That was not. I mean, we saw there was no signs, and we decided to park.
We should have
Just assumed
questioned
no.
our parking
Yes,
book.
we should have just said, well, probably too good to be true. And
we were so anxious to get
so
started.
after the Mets Angels game, we walked a mile and a half or two to get the car.
It felt like 7.
Oh, it was long. It felt long. It was.
You know, sometimes you don't research things. I had to go down to Kansas City for work about a week ago. Actually, it was a week. What's today? Saturday? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a week ago. And we were hungry, and it was around breakfast time. So we're like, hey, let's swing into a McDonald's because I can go for a McGriddle. Because look at me. And so we just grabbed the first McDonald's. Well, you should really research areas in large cities before you just pop off the interstate, because there was a guy in there talking about how his buddy had gotten shot 10 times right there on that corner.
Well, that wasn't the problem. Where they're at is just fine. It's just it was a long ways. What?
Where we
were parked. Was
I thought you were going to talk about something.
But we had no real idea. I mean, it was kind of sketchy when we
well,
got to
the deal was we went. There's this
the tow yard.
Yeah, well, a bunch of Mets fans were at this bar. I mean, a lot, a lot. And so we were just trying to be there at that bar, and there's a parking lot that extends. And at one point it said don't park, but then there was a whole section that said nothing.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so we did.
So absence of information is freedom, right?
Well, you would think, but they did not. They did
not
not see
how
it
it
the same
works,
way
yeah.
as we did. That's the problem.
Yeah, I can see where that'd be a problem. And I can't imagine getting your car towed here is...
Well, this is Anaheim, so it's different.
Well, but, I mean, getting your car towed in Waterloo, Iowa...
Yeah, but Anaheim
is
is
easy.
slightly different. I mean, I felt less weird about it. Anaheim's super nice. Like the people at the ballpark were like so nice compared to the Dodgers stadium that we were like. I mean, and yeah. Anyway, yeah. I never felt endangered.
No, I just mean the process
I felt stupid
of retrieving
getting towed.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought I would maybe. Unless you've got something you want to say.
No, if you want to start, you want to start us.
Okay, David Tennant is... Oh, wait. You're not David Tennant.
What's wrong with you?
Tell me about the new season of Doctor Who.
So much more interesting.
I don't want to hear about the new season of Doctor Who.
What? David Tennant's coming back, man.
Is he really?
Yeah.
That's a good choice on their part.
There's another Doctor Who, but David Tennant's coming back, as well as the Donna, the one that was also on The Office later. The British chick from The Office.
Yeah, I haven't seen the British Office. So.
No, the real Office.
The real Office, okay.
The one who kind of took over The Office and then got fired eventually.
Like she had Michael Scott's job after...
Well, Michael left. It was after Michael left.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like when they went through that
revolving
door of guest stars.
Idris Elba.
Well, I mean...
I missed a lot of episodes of The Office. I didn't know Idris Elba was on it.
Women just find him attractive.
It's weird. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, she was Donna, one of the companions 15 years ago or something like that. Oh. And so they brought her back to You're like, I don't watch Doctor Who.
What are you doing? You don't... Why are you here? You're the one that doesn't like me.
Not anymore.
Yeah, because I can be up here and bother
Hey,
people.
Big, how about you hop down?
How about you shut up?
Yeah.
In the face. In the
You learn how
face.
to look out of one eye.
You get on there real quick for me?
Yep.
Talkie
This is
talkie?
I'm talking and live sports on ESPN. What did you just do?
She licked my nose.
Oh yeah, he does. He licks. He did one time. He when he was younger, he really got into it. But he was licking my nose. I'm like, oh, maybe open some. It was red.
Ooh.
I mean, his tongue is super rough,
Yeah.
and it was like for like a week, I had like red spots from when he's like.
You know what? You want to start us off? I've been starting us off.
I know.
You go ahead and go?
Okay.
All right.
Hi.
That's why Zach's been starting.
Yeah, I think it probably is. Well,
Well, welcome to Those Who Do. Our guest today is a friend of mine and a very talented director and editor, Mr. David Greenspan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
thanks for being here. I think it's this has been a passion project of ours for a while. We've been working on this for about 6 months, getting it set up and together, and it's neat the different types of people that we've been able to have conversations with, and I'm excited to have you on because you're going to be talking about a part of the business that I know virtually nothing about.
Me too.
But they pay you anyway.
That is fantastic. That gives me hope. We kind of chatted for a little bit before we turned the mics on about how our goal is just to have a conversation. But what's important is our focus on this show is to look at the things that not only that people do, but passions people have and what the influence is of the person on the thing that they do. So we won't just be talking to you about your job because that ultimately is fairly impersonal, but we also want to get to know you. And by we, obviously Tony knows you. I don't know you very well, but the listeners as well will get to know you as a person because your ability to do your thing is vastly influenced by who you are.
Well, and we also want to just look at the journey and how that's informed where you've gone and, the way you do what you do.
Right. Correct. So
I'll pull a line from Zach. Tell us about little David growing up.
Well, I grew up on the East Coast, on Long Island, and I was into art. I'd like to draw. My parents were very supportive of everything I did.
Were they creatives?
No, my dad. Mm-hmm. Well, my mom. No, my mom was. She was a bit of an artist. She did a lot of sculpture, and she liked to draw too. But, she took a lot of classes. Our house is filled with her sculptures and everything,
Which is awesome. Yeah.
and I used to go sit for her. She did my bust. She did my dad's head. She did my sister eventually. So yeah, there was a little bit of art there. My dad's a physician, and I don't know, as the firstborn son of a firstborn son in a Jewish family.
Oh, you're supposed to be a doctor, weren't you?
No, there was no pressure.
Dentist or something like that.
Yeah,
Sweetheart.
He used to complain about like the health insurance and this isn't a great living for the future. A doctor.
Oh,
I mean, it was
right,
fine,
of course.
But there was no pressure to do that. There was pressure to like do well. Not pressure, but they were impressed by school. They were impressed by
Academic excellence.
Mm-hmm. So it's not that there was pressure to do it. I felt like I would be.
You got good feedback.
A good pat on the head.
Yeah, exactly. Good feedback.
Yeah, but I feel like it was like inherent to me. I was just like a good student. I liked doing. I didn't like being embarrassed. I think that's like I want to be prepared. I want to get the work done. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't like conflict. So I made sure that I had done the homework but that was after fourth grade. I remember fourth grade. I didn't like long division, so I just decided not to do the math homework. And every week we'd have to give a little piece of paper signed by our parents saying that we had done all the homework. And for like half of fourth grade, I realized I could just forge my mom's signature.
Valuable tool.
So I did that. I didn't do any long division homework. And at the end of the year, I guess I wasn't doing super great academically. So they put me in fifth grade. I was put in Mr. Soblotsky's class. And Mr. Soblotsky was a really nice Russian guy who had just come from a private school to our public school. And they gave him a group of the absolute shittiest juvenile delinquents of everyone in the school.
So you were Anthony Michael Hall in detention.
I guess. I mean, I was thrown in there with these morons. And I really didn't like it. I really liked the teacher, so I decided to like just separate myself from them, and that's when I started to work really hard and do all the work. And ever since that, and I was bullied pretty badly in that class, but ever since that grade, I was just like, I would just knock it out of the park with my grades, and I just like the feedback from that. So I was a goody two shoes, did the homework, and that was my child. And then right around fifth grade also, my buddy introduced me to comic books.
Okay. Yep.
Avengers and X-Men, and then Daredevil. And Frank Miller was doing all this stuff with ninjas. He was sticking ninjas in everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the Elektra saga and all that. Yeah.
And
So,
the
like,
hand,
the
which is
hand,
the inspiration for the foot. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And Stick and Claw and or whatever those guys were. Like, I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Do you remember what your first comic book was that you bought?
Yes.
What was it?
It was X-Men 171, and I can't remember the number of the Avengers, but it's one where like there's a giant like force field takes up most of the cover, and they're all they're pounding on it.
I'm trying to remember 171. That's is that the Brood or
It's
is that...
Rogue. It's Rogue. Welcome to the X-Men Rogue. Hope you
that's what it is. Yeah.
survive the
Yeah,
experience.
Do you remember the first comic book you ever bought?
Honestly, no.
Really?
I mean, for those who don't know, I have a fairly extensive collection, and I don't really remember the first one because I inherited a lot of them from my dad, who was a barber, and so he would have magazines and comic books for kids for people to read while they're waiting or even while they're cutting. So I mean, I cut my teeth on either, some sort of Archie / Little Lulu Casper or Tales of Suspense type, which those are the ones that I really stick because the art was great at them, and it was just that,
There was a 2-issue run of Batman where he was up against Anarchy. Do you remember that run? And it was such a fucked up run. Like, it was 2 issues, and Anarchy ends up being a child. And I'm like, these are the first 2 comics I bought with my own money, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I thought
that's not what I signed up for.
I thought I was being exposed to this great new addition to Batman's Rogues Gallery, and it is like a 14-year-old kid at best with like the mask is suspended over his head with a framework because he's so small, and I'm like, how in the hell? So then I had to go pick up. There was a Batman versus Penguin run. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like a 4-issue run. I'm like, I got to cleanse my palate somehow. But then I got away from Batman. Like, I went.
Well, mine was definitely when I really got into it was 100% X-Men. That was my jam was X-Men, and then Avengers.
Everybody loved X-Men.
Yeah,
X-Men
and
such a good...
Spidey. I liked the team up issues like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, the Thing. It's.
There was a great Spider-Man run. It was a Spider-Man Wolverine team up by McFarlane called Perceptions, and it was like so visceral and adult, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be reading this, but it's amazing.
Well, and that would be the thing. A lot of times, sometimes I just gravitate toward artists. Like when McFarlane took over Thor, I would start to read more Thor.
Right.
So I was like, depending. Yeah.
I mean, the art was driving a lot, I think.
Yeah.
I was always into art. Like I when I did Dungeons and Dragons, I wasn't really into Dungeons and Dragons, but I liked to copy the drawings that were in the Dungeon Master guides and everything. And so anyway, the whole ninja thing really sparked my interest, and I started to get really interested in Japan and Japanese history and culture. And
That's right, because you went to Japan for a while.
I did.
Right?
I did my junior year there, and I've been there a few times. And I got my dad. We bonded. He was read me, on vacation out. We read me the Kurosawa's autobiography, and I got really got into Kurosawa movies and stuff.
Right.
Sure.
And so it all started with those ninjas and the Frank Miller comics, and I got into Japanese. I started studying Japanese when I was in high school, and when I got to college, I thought I was gonna study economics and East Asian studies and like, be a broker and stuff. But as soon as my first trip to Japan, or my second trip to Japan was just before my junior year of college, and I was at Nomura Securities doing an internship, and I didn't like the lifestyle of like salary man. These guys, they were
I totally get it.
Well,
Yeah.
and in there, it's like super intense. Like you're expected to excel, and if you don't, that's like a black mark on your family and you, and like that would be a lot of stress.
Yeah, I mean, but I first was really interested in Japanese culture because after I got into the ninjas, we took like a trip to the East Asia Society in New York City, and they had a bunch of NHK videos which would show, everyday life of kids in Japan, and it was fascinating to me how hard these kids worked.
Right.
Like they would go to school and they'd go to Juku, which was after school, and I was like, God, I complain about my homework if these guys are really busting their ass. Like,
Right.
Not a single video of any of them forging their mom's name on anything.
I know. I was the same way. I was like, they go to school after school, and it's expected.
I know. And so I was like, well, I can't complain. I'm just going to work harder. I don't know what it was.
Sure.
But I was enjoyed the game, the puzzle of understanding the Japanese language because that was really hard.
Oh yeah, I imagine. In that journey, did you go into the manga world or?
A little bit. Like I got into Miyazaki movies, especially right when I got to college.
Okay.
But not so much into manga.
Right.
What? So, see if you can answer this for me, and either one of you maybe. What's the difference between manga's literature, right?
Yeah, it was a comic book.
Okay, so I was going to ask what the difference between manga and anime is, but obviously anime is
anime, but I mean, yeah. I mean,
the visual style is the same.
right, exactly.
But
It's
one
the medium.
is one's visual,
Comic books
video,
and
the other is comic
animated
books.
movies.
Okay,
Right, exactly.
Or TV shows.
Okay.
Speaking of which, I just heard that One Piece is the number one thing.
Everybody's
right now.
talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, the live action One Piece.
But
One
I don't.
Piece is the number one manga of all time.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've never even heard
Well,
of it.
I looked it up because I had a buddy who was like, because I've been putting it off for a while, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I owe myself to look at it culturally and just to see what it is artistically. And so I've been watching it, and then all of a sudden they've got this live action One Piece, and apparently that live action One Piece is like outpacing even Wednesday and Stranger Things.
Wow.
And it just came out.
Because Wednesday took off hard.
I know, but it just came out on Thursday.
That shows you how many fans out there. Because
Exactly.
the trailer itself didn't look that impressive to me. Like I was like, and I read a quick review headline that said you got to know the comic, you got to be a fan of the comic to really.
But
like
see,
this.
so that doesn't always translate because they had what was it? Darn it. I'm going to sit here and be stupid online.
Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy Bebop.
There
right.
you go.
Everybody hated it. Even the people that knew it the most hated it the most.
Sure.
And so for people to say, well, if you know it, it's good, probably is a good sign.
Well, they were also saying if you don't know it, it's not.
Exactly, but there's enough manga fans out in the world that
Clearly.
that it will
But
drive
anyway,
it.
the fact that I hadn't heard of it shows
Sure.
you that I wasn't that into manga.
Sure.
Right.
But when I was in Japan, I loved learning the language from trying to read the comics because that was very satisfying. There's something satisfying about just
Well, like you said, unlocking
figuring
a
out
puzzle.
unlocking a puzzle, which is
Yeah, I find that fascinating because I see it and I'm like, part of me every once in a while will be like, what is it like to be able to understand the characters but the characters themselves have history.
Yeah, it's a lot of
it's not like
memorization.
ABC.
It's hard.
It's not like ABC. There's meaning to
Yes.
each, the characters, and so that's a whole different level you have to deal with, right?
Yeah, well, that's a pain in itself. But yeah, and then when I was in Japan for my junior year, my parents and my sister came to visit, and I was translating for them, and I felt so useful. I felt this is a good feeling to like have a skill that nobody else has, be indispensable. So that was a good big part of it.
That's wild. Like that makes a lot of sense, because you figure if the positive feedback from your parents was very important to you, and to get that success, and now you're successful in something that none of them are able to do. I could see where that would be very fulfilling, because it's like, hey, look at me, and I'm getting a positive result from this thing.
But that was a byproduct. Like I was into it for the sake of it itself at first.
Yeah.
But there was definitely part of it was knowing that it's like it's different, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's not an easy language either.
No.
It's not like
I was like, screw Spanish. I'm going for Java. Spanish would have been much more useful right now.
So how does this journey get us into media arts?
Well, I went to Japan, spent my junior year in Japan, and there was we were at a Stanford Center, and it was all American students, but they had a relationship with Kyoto University, and you could sign up for whatever clubs they had at Kyoto University. And I had always wanted to try my hand at filmmaking, and there was the Kyoto University Filmmaking Club, and it was just a bunch of guys with VHS decks.
Sure.
But they were a really creative group, and I got to make my first short film there. That was inspired. That was my junior year. At the end of my freshman year of college, a buddy of mine, he was in the drama club.
Okay.
And I Harvard had these open auditions, and I went out and I auditioned, and I had never done any acting, and I got one call back. But my buddy who was really doing it, he recommended these two movies to me right before summer break after freshman year. And I saw Miller's Crossing and Hal Hartley's The Unbelievable Truth.
Okay, I don't think I've seen the second one.
Hal Hartley he's a indie filmmaker from Long Island.
Okay.
And he was making movies for like $90K back in the late 80s. And I saw both of these movies the same day, and one was just amazing, like the way the Coen brothers had control over everything in the frame, and that whole thing was planned out and it was beautiful. It was a great movie. And then Hal Hartley had this very unique, clearly shot on a cheap budget, and it looked like you could do it on the weekends with your friends, and you were like, oh wow, that's so different, it's so unique, and it's so doable. I was like, that seems like a fun career to do that.
Okay.
Like to hang out with your buddies
create.
each weekend and create. And so that was always in the back of my mind, but I had already like gone down the path of studying economics and taking all these Japanese classes, and I was dead set on going to Japan my junior year. But I was starting to get sick of economics, and I was in Japan at that Nomura Securities thing and thinking, why did I get interested in Japan in the first place? And it was Kurosawa movies, and it was comic books. It was visual storytelling.
Right.
And so I was like, I need to investigate this a little bit more. And I made a short film there, and that was fun with that club. And then when I came back, I was like, I don't even care if I like graduate in economics or anything. I'm going to go and take this NYU summer continuing education certificate in film program that they have right when I got
Worst
back.
places to get that.
Yeah. So that was available. Like as soon as I got off the plane, I was like telling my parents, I want to investigate these programs, and
the feedback was
sure,
good.
Yeah, we did it. I did it, and then I think they were bummed after that I was like, I don't know what I want to do after college, and after that I studied for the LSAT, and then I was like, I'm not taking this test. And then and somebody from, I don't remember who it was, the dad's friends hooked me up with an interview at this place called Savoy Pictures. It was back when Miramax was pretty new.
Yeah.
And it was like a spin-off of Miramax.
No,
And the Savoy was named after the bat, the Savoy Special from The Natural, because somebody who started it had something to do with like producing that movie.
The Natural, right? Yeah.
And so I got a meeting with the CEO or maybe the CFO,
Right.
and
Still tied into a kind of to entertainment or accounting.
well, he was like, "Look, you want to make movies, and everybody wants to make movies." He was like, "You need to make money first. I'll give you. You're coming out of Harvard economics department. Let me give you a job in the accounting department.
Right.
You'll rise up there. You'll become a producer, or whatever. You'll make executive. You'll make lots of money, and then you can just pay for your own movie and direct it." And I was just like in the room. I was there and looking. I was like, I don't know if I want to like work for 20 years as a freaking accounting department.
Right.
It's like I think I want to. I think
Do it now.
I want to. I think I told him I was dumb enough to be like in the room, like I want to make the movies, and I could just hear him sigh, and then I was like, but even after that, I didn't immediately. No, I graduated, and I started looking for internships in New York City that had stuff to do with film. There was the Shooting Gallery, was a collective in New York where they were making a lot of indie movies. And through that, I met somebody who was like just cutting a 16 millimeter feature about phone sex. And I like was an intern and I was helping sync the dailies on 16 millimeter dailies. And that guy eventually came out here. He's an editor. And he edited Spotlight, the Best Picture winner.
Right.
So after doing that internship, I asked, if he had worked on another movie with a bunch of people, and these guys were making, maybe the guy used to be like a location manager or an assistant director. He was directing his first movie through the Shooting Gallery or through friends of the Shooting Gallery, and they needed a location PA.
Okay.
So I started commuting every day into Alphabet City and like being basically
Scouting.
a location scout for a no budget movie for no pay.
For those that don't know, a location scout is the guy that's like, we have certain scenes that need to take place in a certain place. Let's find that place. And they have people that just go out and do that.
And I would imagine, too, if it's the budget's low enough, and how can we sneak in there, do it, and get out?
Oh, yeah, for sure. This was low budget.
Yeah,
and I was working for free, but I was excited to be there. And I was just like, I can't believe I'm working with these. But they were definitely like, they weren't the best of the best. And they went off to shoot their movie, and I was like, could I maybe? I don't think I wanted to keep working for free. I started applying to video post-production editing houses in New York City.
So the editing experience came from Savoy, or no, not for Savoy, but I mean this project, or
no. I think what happened was I got back from Japan. Junior year I spent in Japan. Came back to finish my senior year at Harvard, and I was like, I want to do film now. And they're like, well, you can't just transfer into our department. You should have done that
3 years ago.
Sophomore.
Yeah,
I was like, well, I don't want to like spend extra years at college. So I just was like, can I take some electives? And some of like the filmmaking classes were, you had to get in by interview because they were everybody wanted to do those.
right? Yeah.
And so I interviewed with one professor. And I think I accidentally insulted him or something. Like I implied those who can't teach.
Oh, no.
I was like, so dumb.
Well, yeah, especially when you look at Harvard or like NYU or something where these are professionals that came in and then yeah.
Exactly. So I screwed that up. So I couldn't get into the production classes. I did take a French cinema critical studies class, which I enjoyed. But I wasn't going to be able to make anything. And then I heard that a bunch of underclassmen, while I was away in Japan, had created the Harvard Radcliffe Television Club or organization. And they were all making soap operas.
Okay.
They're making soap operas up in like the North Quad, and everybody wanted to be a writer, a director, or an actor.
Right.
Every single person. I was like, and I was older than them by like 2 years. And I was like, I'll just edit the stuff. Because like nobody wanted to do it. And I was like, there's something I can do. I didn't know anything about it. So I would take the tapes, the VHS tapes they shot.
Right.
Get on the subway, go 2 stops to Kendall Square to the, public access station,
Television,
and they let
yeah.
us use like the deck to deck.
The deck-to-deck,
and I
okay,
was cutting dialogue scenes that they shot. And, it was like it was crappy. It was all crappy, but that was the first time I edited.
But like self-taught, or did
Yeah,
was it,
oh
wow.
Yeah, I had to figure out the deck to deck
shit.
thing, and not only that, also like the L cuts and everything.
Yeah.
And then so.
Did anybody at the public access give you some pointers, or they just
I
said,
don't remember.
"Here's our equipment"?
I think I was by myself
Yeah,
in the
they just-
room.
they said,
They might have helped me
"Here's
like
your
turn on the
equipment, go for it."
machine. Yeah.
This is how you turn it on. Yeah,
It
okay.
was I was so by myself, but nobody was bothering me. And then I don't remember if these kids they were all like they were the cool kids. They were like the handsome guys and then the pretty girls, and they were, oh, thanks, great. But I was never part of that group. And anyway, I made when I was about to graduate, I told my parents I don't want to do an economics thesis. I have enough. My grades are high enough where I can graduate.
Without it.
And I thought I could graduate with like a degree in economics. The letter of the law said I could. Anyway, I ended up graduating with general studies because I didn't do my thesis. My parents were bummed, but I was like, I'm gonna make a film instead. So I made Mr. Potato Head Goes to College. So it was like a Mr. Potato Head was the main character. I voiced him, and it was just like a last hurrah video. But it was like 40 minutes long. It's probably,
Wow.
I can't imagine what it.
Do you still have it?
I don't know if I still have it.
Oh, come on.
I need to.
Oh,
I think I
come
have
on.
an SVHS of it.
Okay, yeah.
But does anyone have an SVHS deck? Because I never digitized it.
Honestly, I might have something for you.
Okay,
We'll check later.
I should get it out because I eventually sent that to UT Austin Film School to get off the wait list and beg them, and probably shouldn't have. They were like, "We're gonna let you in,
Despite this.
I'm gonna send you a 40-minute film.
But anyway, so that was like, and I edited that deck to deck at the same public access station, and then graduated college, did that internship, syncing the 16 millimeter dailies, the location scout on the low budget film, and a great anecdote when I went to that. Anyway, I had applied to like 50 post production video houses in New York City, sent out letters cold, and I got a response from like 2 of them, and I interviewed at one, and I got the job. I was a tape op, so we would get the dub orders in the machine room. It was fun. It was a great first job out of school. After I had booked that job, I was like, but this one weekend I got to go see how they're shooting this low budget movie, and I was so excited I could go be on the set. So I got there. They're shooting in the morning, and then they're going to break for lunch. And the DP's like, I got to get one more shot. Everybody else break for lunch. Just the first AC stay with me, and I was like, I'll hang out, I'll help. And so I don't know, they're just getting an insert or something in the bathroom, and the AC's all contorted. He's like, can I assistant cameraman, and can you get me I need a half apple. I was like, oh, I saw those downstairs when I came in the dining room.
Eager beaver.
So I ran downstairs and I got an apple out of the fruit bowl. I cut it in half. I brought it upstairs and I proudly handed it to the...
Explain to everybody what an apple and a half apple is.
Okay, so an apple box it's a box. It's a wooden box.
It's like an apple crate that you would get apples with.
Pancakes,
Yep.
quarters, halves, and full. And they use them all the time on film sets.
Yeah, originally they would use apple boxes, the wooden apple crates that you would get, and then they started using half apples because they did a little more higher.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway.
So I was so embarrassed, but that was,
I love it.
That's why I was like,
that is the ultimate naive film guy move. I need an apple. Okay, I got an apple.
Oh yeah, I saw them.
You want a half an apple? I'll cut it in half for you.
That's how excited I was to be part of the industry.
But it's just like anytime you're super eager for something and you're looking for approval. Like when I was a kid, my dad sent me in the house. He's like, hey, go get me a brewski. So I go in the house. I open the refrigerator doors. And I don't see anything called a brewski in there. So I come back out and I was like, hey, I didn't see any brewski. All I saw was Budweiser. The asshole shot me with a pellet gun.
No! What the hell?
Well, at least you didn't get a pellet gun. So,
No, they just
anyway,
kind of...
They had their good laugh.
I was embarrassed,
Yep.
but they just laughed. They were fine.
Yeah. I love it.
Anyway, so I spent a year at that video editing house, and I remember they had like 2 Avids installed upstairs. Everything was done online. Mm-hmm. They were doing mostly commercials, but they had just installed Avid. This was 1995,
I mean, that's pretty early, right?
Yeah. And so, like, they had to convince the clients to use the Avid.
Of course,
stuff.
yeah.
But I was like, this is cool. And so I was like, I like to learn Avid. So I went up on my off hours and recut Mr. Potato Head Goes to College. Match, edit for edit.
In Avid.
In Avid. I digitized the SVHS and then
Then you did digitize it.
Well, but I don't have that version. I got it into Avid. I taught myself Avid. And then I was like, I want to go to, and I was reading articles about USC Film School. I want to go to film school. But I came out here first and I worked for Activision, the video game company, for 1 year while I was waiting for my...
Activision Pitfall. Pitfall was an Activision game.
Yeah.
While you were waiting for the processing of your application.
Yeah. And
what were they working on at the time that you got to...
Oh, one of the things I remember, I was finishing up, because I was about to move out to LA, because I had taken the Activision job, and I was about to move out to LA, and so I only had like a few more days to finish re-editing Mr. Potato Head Goes to College on the Avid before I would lose access to the Avid.
Right.
So I stayed there all weekend, like all night. I did all-nighters, and I remember that I was there when the OJ verdict came down. So I came outside and like everybody was talking about it. I was just
then you went to
That's where
USC.
I was.
And then you went to USC.
And then I went to USC.
What were they working on at Activision when you were there? Just curious.
MechWarrior.
MechWarrior.
I was Warrior on MechWarrior 5. Yeah, it was.
4 was my jam. But
Was it? Yeah. This was the big one. This is the one that really relaunched the company.
It did. But
yeah. And so I was but I didn't know anything about computer programming, and I was just doing localizations. I was doing Japanese version and the German version, and I got to go to Activision Japan for 3 months and do Zork Nemesis Japanese version,
Zork
and I was like a
Nemesis.
producer on it.
Nice.
I got to direct the voice cast.
Voice acting?
Yeah.
That's...
That was cool. Anyway, but I hated Activision Japan, and I was in Activision Japan when I found out that I had been rejected from USC. They told me to sign a box, and they're like, the fall semester is very competitive, but we have a spring semester. If you just check this box, we'll reevaluate. You don't have to reapply. We'll just reevaluate you for the spring. And I was so miserable at Activision Japan. I was like calling my mom, and she was like, just write a letter to UT Austin, because I was on the wait list, and just beg them to let you in. And I did, and they let me in. And I went there for one semester, 1996, fall. Had a great time. And then USC let me in, and I moved all my stuff back out to LA in January 97.
What was it about Activision Japan that was so miserable?
The boss. He was.
Oh, yeah.
He was American,
Oh, no shit.
but he was a difficult
I
personality.
would just
to deal
like
with.
to, in today's climate, UT Austin at the time was Big 12, and now they're going to be in the SEC, and UCSC was in the Pac-12, and now they're going to be in the Big 10.
And just
So-
you're making people mad
I know,
right now.
that
Just
makes me
by
mad, but
just
anyway.
to stop.
So
I don't know what the Venn diagram.
I know. I'm
care
like,
about
so
the two things
you've got to go to whole different conferences for both your places. Now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much, you got a circle over here and a circle over here.
Well, now they're all Midwest or adjacent now, even though it's USC.
I know my buddy from film school, Justin Chin. He was, a big Boomer Sooner fan
Okay.
and filmmaker. So there's one.
There's one. Yeah. Well, they went with UT over to the SEC. So, next year they will.
I think what's great about your story so far is how often you were self-taught. That's I think
so
people
smart.
I think people think that you have to go to a formalized program to learn how to use Avid or learn how to use Premiere or learn how to use Final Cut or whatever you're using to edit. They think that you need to go to some formalized program to be able to especially do long form stuff. So I think I'm super interested.
That's interesting that you pointed out, because I always see myself as doing well in a structured school environment. I always was excelling at that. So that's why I wanted to go to film school. But it turns out that the skill I use the most, you're right, I was seeking it out on my own without that. I mean, that's a sign if you're doing that.
That you're interested.
That you're
that's something you
interested.
really want.
Was there any course correction that came with going to film school? As far as techniques that you had adopted yourself by experimentation that they had to wrap you on the knuckles for, or were they okay, that's another way of doing it, and they appreciate
No,
it?
I mean, it's a pretty creative environment. I think you're allowed to experiment. I don't know. Like when I got there, like everybody else, I wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg. Everybody wanted to be a director. And then I was like, or cinematographer. I really like cinematography. That was something that got me excited when I was at the NYU School of Continuing Education program. I was like, this is fascinating. All these like color temperatures and creating a mood and everything.
Yeah.
So when I was at SC, I was telling everybody I wanted to be a cinematographer. And that's where like I was a TA in one of the basic cinematography classes, and I was trying to volunteer to do that. I was like, we did a documentary project, and I was a cinematographer. We did one of these projects at 546 where everything's funded by the school. They get like 4 get picked, and you got a crew on that. In some regard, everybody wants to be the writer director of it,
And you
but
also
if
get
not, you
some-
want to be like the cinematographer.
And for those that don't know, those are also the ones that tend to get the SAG actors, so that you actually
Yes.
have a
Well, the thesis films can get SAG actors too.
but not the 4.
The 546s can do too. Those just happen to be like, those are the official sanctioned, fully funded by the
Right,
school,
right.
and there was only like 4 a semester.
Right.
And on
But I
that,
mean, it's a full-fledged deal.
Yeah.
Either way, right? Yeah.
But in terms of editing, I took an editing class. I don't know. Editing for me is just common sense, and you just do it. It's like what you want to see next, how long you want to see it, and I don't know that I got much out of my editing classes.
Well, I mean, which I'm going to say, I mean, it sounds to me like you just had a natural flow to understanding of flow and narrative and how it works as far as editing goes.
I think most everyone has it. Everybody who makes a film and has seen films, like they know, like this feels slow.
Well, they know when it's not right.
You need some practice to be able to do it quickly to
Right.
get to that spot first.
Right.
But people if they sit down and they start to cut, they have a sense. They have a general rhythm. I don't know. For me, it's always been common sense. Maybe I have a knack for it. But
First directing, was it around then?
well, it was that film that I did in Japan,
Okay, yeah.
which was all about being an outsider in Japan. And then the second one was Mr. Potato Head Goes to College, about a Mr. Potato Head
with real people.
who's a student among humans, so he was an outsider.
Right.
And then as soon as
I want to see it so bad, like so
it's
bad.
so bad, it's so
We'll
bad.
find it and we will provide the link.
And then as soon as you get to film school, you have to start making stuff,
Right.
which was good. And I wanted to started doing more comedies. All right, I was doing comedies, I guess, from the beginning.
Hopefully this doesn't fast forward us too much, but obviously technology from when you first were in Japan and started to get an interest and then came back and really got involved and taught yourself Avid, and it has changed so incredibly much. How difficult is that to continually have to make an adjustment to follow technology as it goes?
Well, I picked a craft in the industry that you can kind of get away with not having to learn the technology. You learn one program, and I guess
That'll serve you.
editors are pretty lazy. And you learn one program, and it serves you. Like they update the versions, and I bet you go around town, and I think most editors are still using the 2018 version of Avid.
Oh, wow.
They're so scared to update it
Yeah.
because they don't want to learn the slightest new thing.
It works.
And they keep giving, Adobe keeps giving classes, and I'm like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, Adobe has to keep giving classes because every version they put out's broken.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah, that's part of the problem.
But I just like you get used to this version. You want to be able to not think about that.
Right. I mean, yeah.
And I recently I had to, because I got the software version of Avid and they don't support 2018 anymore. So I am now using the most current version of Avid right now before I came over here.
Right. So you're
But
learning curve
it took a few days. It's still the same program. Right. But literally the reason I was like, I was having back problems, and I was also like, the reason I didn't continue with cinematography when I was in film school, I was like, there's so much technology to keep track of. This is insane. Like to be a DP, honestly, as a an up and coming director or aspiring director, like you should know that technology too. But someone else is like responsible for it.
Right. I mean,
you can be aware
that's
of
their
it.
forte, and
Yeah.
that's like
You're supposed to say, I want it to feel like this, and then the cinematographer figures it out. But
and
like,
hopefully, if they say, "Well, we're going to use this," you're like, "Oh, I know what that is," but I'm not intimately.
Well, like any other good boss, you should kind of have at least a tertiary knowledge of what your people that are working for you
which
are
is
doing.
why I'm so glad I went to film school and did all these different jobs. I did my post sound on my thesis film, and I was I was a gaffer, I was a grip on all these different student projects. So when I'm there on set directing,
you know what everybody's doing.
you know what
it
everybody's
entails.
doing, and you can also like you know why they're if they're BSing you about why it's going slow, but you just appreciate how hard they're working,
Right.
and you can like be chill knowing what everybody does. But so I didn't do cinematography because it's too much technology, and editing. It's like you won't learn one program, and we're a little specialized. Like AEs now kind of have to know
AE being
assistant editors have to know a little bit more. Like it's helpful if they know After Effects. It helps if they can temp effects in Avid. It's helpful if they know the inner workings of Avid and be like experts.
plugins,
Plugins and just media management and everything.
workflow, all that.
And everything's gone digital.
Yep.
I was just like stick a tape in, digitize it. When I was in AE,
Right.
I don't know if other editors are like me. They might be, geeks and fascinated in the technology. I'm not.
Right.
I just want the tool to be able to use
a
it
functional
easily.
tool that you intuitively can use.
Yeah, and so basically I've used the same damn program and the same version of the program for like 15 years.
So I will fast forward a little bit. First professional editing job would be
Professional editing job. Well, as assistant editor.
Sure.
that's being paid.
Well, the first paid editing job I had was terrible. I was making like a really janky, low budget yoga video. And it was like a flat fee, and I was working on it for like 6, 8, 12 weeks, and I was like, it's just at some lady's house in the Hollywood area. And it was
You know what starts that way? Pornos start that way.
certainly. We were this close to making a porno. And it's like, I think everybody does it when they come out here. They do these, like, it goes from unpaid work to paid work, but
Quote,
you'd rather be
unquote,
doing
paid,
unpaid
yes.
work. And
To the people that have money but are not professionals. Yes, yeah.
but my very first true, upstanding thing was ABC Family's Back to School, and it was a night digitizer for a reality show. And I went down to like the Hollywood Production Center and really had forgotten how to use Avid by that point. I mean, like on a professional level, like I knew the basics, but I hadn't used it in like a year or two, maybe not more. And my buddy was editing reality, and he was like, "Well, we need digitize." I had decided that I wanted to get into the guild because my USC thesis film had won a Palme d'Or when I graduated, and I thought I was going to be a director. I thought I was going to be a working director right out of film school, which is it's quite rare.
Sure.
But I was like, I'm going to do it.
But it's not impossible.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
exactly.
So, but it was for me. So as soon as that dawned on me, I got to make a feature though based on that, a low budget feature. We shot in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 2003, and it came out in festivals in early 2005, and it didn't sell. And when I came back from that Slam Dance Film Festival in 2005, I was like, I think I got to get a day job that isn't writer director, because I can't handle the the sales, the selling, the pitching, like it's it's not in me. So
there's more people skills. Involved.
I want a specific
horse
craft,
wrangling and things.
Everybody who was actually working from my film school class and still in LA and getting paid to do anything, they were all editing post-production reality at that time. And so I just asked, I was like, and there was one person who was assistant editing for scripted, and that was like the holy grail.
Right.
And so I asked her, I was like, how do I get in the guild? And she told me, she's like, well, you get your days, you get 100 days, and most people do it through reality. So then I called many of my other friends from USC who were editing reality. I was like, do you guys have any assistant editing positions? And I started that. That was that night digitizing. I did that for like a month or two and went insane, I think. Like I got super depressed working nights.
Oh yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it.
And it was just the same thing. It
But
was
yeah.
that it was not super creative.
Not
right?
super creative.
Yeah.
Assistant editing work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as soon as I got my days for the guild, I went back to my video DVD quality control job. And that person who was in scripted, she ended up calling her assistant editor needed surgery on her eye, and she needed a fill-in. And this was Grey's Anatomy season 2. And I
Just
got
a little show called Greenspan.
yeah, I got like, and it was the hottest thing.
Yeah. It
Whatever
was
happened
huge.
with that is
It's still on the air.
No.
But I remember being I was like, I'm going to get my first, union job scripted, like on the other side of the there was like there was a wall.
Oh,
Like,
100%.
scripted was walled off from reality.
You're not alone because, I mean, on my side of things, it's like, yes, we do student films too. We do student films, we do thesis projects, we do a bunch of, bullshit things. Just to, number one, sometimes it's just, for some people, it's like, I don't know what it's like to be on a set. I was lucky to have been able to do commercials back in Iowa, so I was already there, but you also just pay your dues and to have something on your resume, whatever, right? But yeah, when you break that break to, I'm getting paid for something that other people that I know will see, like Grey's is like, I can tell my friends I edited that and they will have seen it, right? Yeah.
It was very
A
exciting.
funny related Grey's Anatomy story, our friend Sean Cahoe worked in Aspen for the Aspen Opera for on and off for years, and he had come out to LA and was working a production side for a bunch of TV shows and stuff, and he gets this call from Washington DC basically saying, hey, come out and work in this theater job out here, it's guaranteed work. And he had an offer here for a job that I love it when he tells the story. He doesn't tell you what the job is right away. He's like, I had this offer for this job. It was a new show. Nobody really knew if it was going to take off or anything. So I took the surefire Washington, D.C. job, and that lasted a year. And then I came back to L.A., and when I drove into L.A., the first billboard that I saw was this job I'd been offered. And it was Grey's Anatomy. And he's like, son of a bitch.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
In what capacity?
He was working like production, like a
Production
grip or
coordinator?
something.
Oh.
Yeah, like he was working in the trenches, but he was making
so?
great money,
Yeah,
and I mean at the time he was telling me, and at the time I think it was like $35 an hour, and that's 2002 money, so that's pretty decent money. And he was just like, what are the odds that the thing that I wasn't willing to gamble on was the thing that would have been the thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the reverse serendipity thing.
Yeah.
So we're now in your era of Shondaland. That you entered that, and how was that?
It was very fruitful. So I started there right as they were getting ready for their big Super Bowl episode, season 2. I was assisting my USC classmate who had been an assistant on the pilot. And when her editor wanted to go explore other things, he recommended her to be bumped up, thinking that maybe he could come back and take the spot back if he wanted to.
Right.
To keep the seat warm for him. But I think the Shondaland producers were like, you can't just leave us. And then she knocked it out of the park. She edited one of the best episodes ever. Episode, I think it was like 202 or 203, called Into You Like a Train. And that just solidified her position there.
Right.
And so she was like going to be a full-time editor. But it wasn't until like a little bit later, in the mid-year, she needed a replacement. So I filled in for her, hit it off with everybody there. And I was only there for a month. They let me go. And I worked on a feature at night, but it was still union. And then they called me back. They were like, "We're going to dedicate one of our assistant editors just to the rap reel. When a show's a hit, they let them do whatever they want. So one assistant editor was making a rap reel, and they needed a fourth assistant editor. Usually it's 3 and 3. 3 editors, 3 assistants. Fourth assistant editor to come back and actually do the job for one of the editors. And I came back, and I never left. I was there. Shonda was creating another show, Private Practice. So they were she was cherry picking her favorite editor to move over there, opening up a spot. And I was
right.
I had only been there for a year and a half, but I was like, I'll edit. And they were like, okay, chill.
I'm sure you would like to.
I'm sure you would like to, but it's still kind of Shonda doesn't want to. This is what they told me. Shonda doesn't want to have to worry about grays when she's launching the other show. So we're going to go hire an experienced editor, and they did. And this woman had cut, I want to say, We Are the Titans, but only in the middle of her second episode, her feature director dude got another thing, and she was like, I'm leaving to do this feature.
To do the feature. Right,
and I was like, I'll still do it. And now they needed someone midweek.
Right.
And they were like, let's give David a shot. Yeah.
Right.
So I started.
So let's talk a little nuts and bolts. What does, for the people at home, what does it mean to be an editor for a show? I mean, you were talking about what you do for assistant editing. You're taking, some of the bits and pieces and assembling for the editor. But what does it mean to be an editor?
So you're basically looking at the script, looking at the footage, and building the show. I mean, an assistant editor takes all the footage in and processes it, gets it all ready, makes sure it's all there, puts it in a nice visual arrangement for the editor to just start editing. And you're picking the first shot of each scene and then the next shot. And then when you switch to the next angle, which angle it is, which take it is, you're doing the first pass of the show. You're building the show. You're telling the story.
So editors have quite a bit of creative input.
Yeah.
The director has already set the tone, and the cinematographer has set the tone, set the story, and so you're helping create the beats. Right?
Yeah, exactly. You're taking all this stuff. Like, they had to come up with everything from scratch. The script, everything was, guided and designed, and now you're saying what's the best of the best.
Right.
And digging out those moments and giving the time to the most important moments and breezing through everything else.
Right. And so, so they have a storyboard. Right. Originally, they've created some sort of storyboard, right?
Well, there's not going to be for scripted TV, unless it's like a stunt or an action sequence or a visual effects sequence, a small portion of it in a 1 hour drama on TV network. Most of it's not going to be storyboarded.
Okay.
Only these specific sections, like a big time stunt, big time of VFX.
Right. So when you get the script, it's the final cut, essentially, right? You've gotten the final cut of the script and
the final version of the script, the shooting script, yeah.
The shooting script,
which they update in TV almost daily. Sometimes little changes to dialogue and stuff.
Right. And then, how often is the director there with you?
So I build the whole show. So every day, and it used to be like on a big movie, everybody gets together at lunch and watches the dailies. But in reality, just the editor sees it. If there's a problem, the editor's got to say something. But basically, I go through the dailies through the process of building the scenes that were shot the day before every day. And the director might pop their head in. How's it looking? Needier directors will be, or something. They'll be like, and it's fine. It looks great. And every once in a while, I'd be like, oh, you might want to get this shot, but almost never, because there's no time in TV to get new shots.
Right, and you're stuck to the week schedule, essentially, right?
The directors know. These are experienced people, and they know what they need to put a scene together. And so anyway, I build the show as they shoot. They shoot for like 9 or 10 days. Every day, I edit, put together the scenes that were shot the day before, 4 or 5, 6 scenes that were shot the day before. And then after they stop shooting, I get about 2 to 3 days.
Like the weekend.
It used to be 2 days.
Yeah.
Now they shoot 3 cameras all the time, and I'm like, we gotta have 3 days. On a streaming show, they get like a week or 2 weeks.
Right.
But on network, we get like 3 days, and we polish everything. My assistant puts the sound design on, and my music editor used to be me, but my music editor, as per union rules, puts most of the music on.
Right.
Temp music from, other movies or.
Right.
And we shape the whole thing into what you could present as, not final picture.
Right,
not
but
color
this is
but it gives you a
essentially
sense
what we're
of the
looking at.
story.
Right,
Yeah, this is it. We build the whole thing. And we present it to the director. Director comes and sits with us according to current rules, although the DGA just made a new change in the deal. I'm not sure. But they get 4 days. They get 4 days, and in many cases, these directors are moving on to their next project.
Right.
They don't
Some
all
of them
use
are
the
hired
4
guns.
days, but in
Right,
general,
yeah.
they get 4 days, and many of them use all of it. And I was like, oh, I like what you did there, but I think this take would be better for this line, or this scene, we need to take some time out of it, or I was hoping to use the wide shot here. But from my perspective as an editor, these are tweaks on my thing. I really, built the bones of it.
Right, you're right, and so once again, I mean, we're talking shop. So the director, a lot of time in episodic, is a hired gun
Yes.
that comes in just for that show, and may go to another show, 2 weeks later that they've prepped. When does the showrunner, in this case, well, at the time for Grey's at that time would have been Shonda directly.
Yeah.
Right. When does the showrunner come into play? The showrunner is the person that calls the shots on the show, the one that the creative control is all invested in them.
TV is a writer's medium, so if it's not the showrunner, it's a high-level writer usually,
Right.
or sometimes a non-writing producer who's been given creative control of post.
Correct.
But usually it's the showrunner.
Right.
And they get it the day after the director's done.
Okay. And then they give you notes, or
They give me notes, and these are usually more. They're making bigger changes because
they're looking big picture.
they're looking big picture. They're getting shows to time. Many times these shows need to be stuffed into 42 minutes, and they're like running 48, 50, and they got to decide what they want to take out and leave in.
Prune it out
and
and still keep their
affects
narrative.
things.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reordering scenes. That was one of Shonda's favorites. And also, the writer might have had a vision and wasn't there on set because they're the showrunner. There was one of their junior writers was on set overseeing it, or the person who was tasked with giving that credit and wrote the first draft of it was on set and maybe missed a couple of ideas or the
concepts.
the vision wasn't exactly how the showrunner. It depends on the showrunner.
Right.
Some are hands on, and so now they're trying to rework the footage to give more of that sense that they wanted.
That they were,
So there's more changes, but as an editor, I see the dailies, and I was like, I kind of get as a director myself, I kind of get an idea of what the director was going for. He got these shots. Clearly, he wants to.
So
use
you
this
can
shot.
advocate for the director.
I do. I will.
Right.
I will advocate for the director, and sometimes I'm also advocating for the showrunner when I got to in Shondaland when I got to the mix, because some showrunners don't want to be involved in the mix. And you're sort of their proxy.
Explain mix.
The mix is the final sound mix. We do sound design. We hand it off to the super pros who really sweeten all the sound and get the best quality sound and add the dialogue, ADR and stuff.
The ADR
and then the mix is
right, and the backing music.
the backing music and getting the composer's final cues and getting all those relative levels to sound perfect so you can hear everything that you want to hear when.
There's nothing worse than watching a poorly sound mixed show. It is infuriating.
As a sound nerd.
Oh man, explosion dialogue. It's what is happening? I can't. It's not. I mean, it's not that hard. You need to make sure your levels are right. For crying out loud, you're getting paid a lot of money. Please let me be able to hear what is happening.
That is my job usually when I'm overseeing them. Although those are the notes I give in a mix. Is I can't hear that line.
Right.
I can't hear that line.
Right.
I can't. You need to favor that line over the music, over your sound effects. Because you lose perspective. If you're the SF sound effects mixer, you're I want to hear that door slam. That door slams on a line. I can't understand the word.
Right.
This is TV.
What's important, man? He slammed that door, right?
Christopher Nolan, he's. You can't understand the dialogue in his movie.
Oh, and there are a lot of
because he's really into sound design.
Yeah, it gets muddy and
and there are a lot of very good, well respected and loved TV shows and movies where you're what is Disney Plus is terrible. Like the sound mix on Disney Plus, just on everything, you're just like, why do I have to turn my TV up to 47 when everything else is on 12?
And then the music goes bonkers.
Yeah.
Music
Yep.
or
it's-
explosions, some
explosions,
sort of
it's
effects, or,
crazy.
like blow it out, and then you're like, oh god.
It's
I don't
crazy.
know, but that's almost across the board. But yeah,
Yeah.
But sometimes I wonder if that might be just not even production. That could be something
On the tech side
on the
of the
tech side
website,
of delivery.
yeah. It could
But
be,
who
yeah.
knows?
But it's just insane to me how many like really amazing movies and television shows, like if you're sitting and really pay attention, how bad the sound mix is, because you're just like, man, I just want to hear what Supernatural's bad. Like,
Well,
you know,
I mean, honestly, I think we at Shondaland we kind of like inspired the entire, like using songs with lyrics over large swaths of dialogue.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's like every like person over 45 would call in and be like, I can't understand what anything he's saying.
It's like,
and we're like, oh yeah, we've seen it 60 times, so we know what they're saying. But
Be a soft jewel ballad.
well, you know, Dawson's Creek too. You know, it's like, could you tone down the music just a little bit so I can understand the narrative? That'd be great.
So where are we? So we're editing. We're working with Shonda's projects, and then where are we directing?
well, I was, I went to that film festival, Cannes, and so I always had it in the back of my mind that I can do this. I want to direct. And so as soon as I got to Shondaland, like the beginning of season 3, my second season there, I told the producing director I wanted to shadow him on the season premiere. So I did. I made it known, and there were other people, other editors there, who wanted to be directors. So there was a guy.
Explain producing director, because
Well,
yeah.
the producing director is an in-house director. Each show has one, and they are usually tasked with directing multiple episodes and overseeing and keeping quality consistent between directors. 'Cause you get
Consistency.
a bunch of
Right.
different directors come in.
Not quite showrunner level, but
No,
creatively they're
definitely under
yeah.
the showrunner.
But they're keeping creative flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're also like making sure they have a lot of experience, so they're making sure budgets are good. You know, like oh, can we do this a different way? And
Right.
where to spend the money, and it's sort of a liaison between the current episode director and the showrunner.
Right, so that we're not having to reinvent the wheel. We're passing the
Right.
baton. There's somebody there to say, okay, we're here, and now we go here.
And they're usually super solid directors who, they can give 3 or 4 or 5 episodes a season, and just they know they're going to get good episodes.
Right, and so you're shadowing.
I was shadowing him, and but I was still an AE. I was still an assistant editor, so it was a little presumptuous of me. But I was just trying to make it known that I wanted to do that, and I handed out my thesis film and was making short films on the side,
Okay.
freebie short films on the side, and but yeah, there was an editor at Grey's Anatomy, Ed Ornelas, who had been an editor for a while, went to UT Austin Film School a few years ahead of me, and he was a shining star editor, and he had been telling them that he wanted to direct. And in season 5, I think at the end of season 5, they gave him one, and he crushed it. He did an amazing job, and so at the end of that season, I was like, well, I want to do what Ed. I told Shonda. I had a meeting with Shonda and the producing director, Rob Korn, and I was like, I would like to do what Ed did.
Right.
Down the road, and that was probably the end of season 4. It was the end of season 4 that Ed directed, and
Which is fairly quick. I mean, you came on
Something
2, right?
Yeah.
You came on 2, and you're able. I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, that's not too bad.
no, I like Ed, I had endeared myself to them as a very reliable storyteller, and they were like, well, yeah, we'll consider it down the line. You get in good with these people who have the power to hire directors, and it's not easy to do. It's
Right.
a very competitive thing. So Ed went ahead and he directed, and he eventually stopped editing. And after I asked, about 4 or 5 seasons later, just like as long as Ed had to wait, I got to direct in season 9. an episode of Grey's Anatomy.
Which is not a small thing. I mean, he's...
You don't... You think that, like, that's it. Like, kind of like after the Cannes Film Festival, like, oh, this is it. I'm a director. You think, I directed one episode of Grey's Anatomy and I did it successfully. I'm now a director for hire. I have a career.
Right.
Not so.
Right. Yeah. No,
it's still extremely competitive. I had a special relationship with this one show.
Right.
And I need, it's still to this day a struggle to convince industry wide that I can do it.
And we're in an industry where it's like you do that. You're like, I did it. I did what it was that I want. I mean, I am a guest star on this show, and everything's going to start flowing in now, right? You're like, everybody's going to see that, and they're going to go, that was awesome. Even if it was awesome, doesn't matter.
It takes like 2 or 3 more times where that it doesn't start to flow, that you finally realize, oh. Because I got tricked. Like the second time, I was like, okay, this has got to be it. Everybody's like, well, do a second one. Have them bring you back. And then they're like, get it. You're going to need another title. And so I've now done another title, but technically it's a spin-off of Grey's Anatomy, so they don't really look at it as a true other title. They're like, you're going to need one in another camp, another different show outside of Shondaland. Right. Yep. And but I have 7 now. 3 Greys, 4 Station 19s, but still, and I definitely am getting better at it. Like when but there's a difference between directing your own project or directing a feature film and being a director for hire on a TV show. You're not setting the tone. You're not creating the style. You're not answering every question.
I think that that's something that a lot of the people out in the world don't understand. They think of Spielberg, and they don't understand that television is the showrunner. It's not the right. It's not the director has a role. Clearly, but they are not God. You're focused on your episode. You're doing the nuts and bolts of that day's shooting. You are the most prepared person who knows how to get it done, to get everybody
and
together.
Really lives with that one script and that scene, and guides the actors when they have questions. But the overall creative control is the writer.
Well, and you're dealing with an established IP, we see it all the time, and I think Spielberg and Lucas are both good examples. If they establish something that does well, and then someone else comes along and directs the same IP, it's going to feel different. Like no matter how devoted they are to the source material, because it's a different voice,
right? Yeah. Which you sometimes can't really tell when you watch an episode of a 22 episode network TV show. Can you tell me which one was directed by this person? I mean, you really got to be a avid fan of the show and to be able to pick out the style, because the writing staff is the same, the cinematographer is the same. It has its established look, and also the editing of it and the quality of the script. It's hard to parse what a director does besides keep everybody on set happy and keep the ship running on time and still getting decent quality footage, and only the people behind the scenes who have to fix it when they do screw up will even know that it was difficult to put together, because the end product basically looks the same in network.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are both in the industry. I'm a entertainment nerd, so I can tell on Supernatural when Richard Speight directs an episode, because there's a different vibe to it. When I used to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I could almost to the episode tell you whether Jane Espenson wrote it, because it would just be they had a voice, but I think you're right. Most people that aren't total dorks like I am, can't necessarily suss that out.
You have to be a hardcore fan. You have to be really, really watching them all.
Yeah, and I think your average, for lack of a better term, consumer, I think you're right, can't pick that out. And so, as we sit around this table discussing it, it's easy for us all to kind of go, I might be able to tell. But I think you're right that most people can't. Which is good. I mean, that's what you want, really. You don't want them to be able to pick it out, because then it almost feels like a different show each episode, and you don't want that. Right. So yeah, I think you're definitely right. Sometimes it's just hard as a nerd to be watching something and have just a little like, ooh, wait, that's kind of out of character for that character. Oh, I see why Kevin Smith directed that.
Yeah. Well, and that is the interesting thing. I mean, if you look at things like what Disney Plus is doing, if you look at like Andor,
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of different named directors and stylistic, narratives that they create. I mean, you can definitely tell it's not a consistent product in the sense of narrative, not necessarily production style.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The Mandalorian was really, really obvious for that. I think that they had that opening scene with the stormtroopers where the one punches Grogu inside the bag, and you're like, that felt really out of place. Well, then you find out, I think it was, why am I being a nerd and not being able to think of the Ragnarok director?
Wait, what TJ?
Yeah.
Tiki.
And I think he directed that one, and it was kind of had his like
Comedic
special
thing.
comedic, and it was like, well, that is kind of
The
out of
rompy
place.
type of
Yeah, for a Star Wars in a Star Wars universe, that type of comedy just kind of came
It's
out
jarring.
of nowhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
jarring.
And it would
was.
take a heavy hitter like him to be able to override what the
Right.
writers did.
100% right. Yeah.
And it was almost like it felt like a sketch that was just kind of tagged on, like that. came out of
I mean,
nowhere,
but yeah, compared to somebody like Kevin Smith, who is in the family, in the sense of he's bought in, he's been there,
Right, yeah,
it's like he knows what.
I don't know you're ever going to see Kevin Smith directing anything Star Wars related, though. I think Supergirl's about as deep as he's going to get in any kind of established IP. And
Right.
that's too much of a gamble for anybody. And I love Kevin Smith, but But Taika coming in and really throwing that scene in, because I'm pretty sure it was him, threw that scene in there, and I'm like, holy shit, what just happened? It was funny, but it did not feel like a Star Wars scene. I mean,
Right. So how was it? I mean, so you were working in something you've been editing for years. So what were the pros and cons of that? I mean, obviously the main obvious pro was
I got to do it at all.
Well, I mean, you got to do it all, but I mean, you know the characters, you know the storyline,
Yes.
you've helped create.
That is a huge to know the storyline through and through, know the characters. That's definitely helpful, and to know the crew a little bit and have like allies on the crew. But yeah, and having pieced together all the episodes, knowing what pieces you need, and like this is the opening montage. I would like to have some cool fucking transitions that work.
Is there any time when you're like, I've always been waiting for this person to do this thing, that you're like, I have this opportunity?
Somebody did that.
Yeah.
Somebody did that.
Yeah.
An actress on Station 19 got to direct for the first time ever last season, and she's like, I don't know why nobody's doing this thing where we go over the trucks. And I was like, go for it.
Right?
Yeah. I didn't have that, but coming from the editing perspective, you're like, this is an act out, right?
Was your eye on the editing a little bit though? Like, I want to make the editor's job easier.
No, I mean, I want to make a good show.
Good.
So, but it's like, here's an act out. Like, you can't shortchange an act out. We're gonna try to like build up this moment. There might be an extra couple of like looks, like a comedic thing or something. And since sometimes it's like you can't treat the end of a act out scene the same as the end of just a normal scene. You need a little bit more.
so what act out scene? Give us a definition for that.
Oh, I mean, like, no, it's like they I don't know. There was a scene where they're introducing a piece of technology in one of my episodes, and if you just breeze through it, there won't be a comedic beat at the end, and like we're gonna linger on this a little bit longer, and the music's gonna like play for an act out. So I need a couple more shots.
It's something in a story.
It's like a design, like a push in.
Okay.
Right.
We're gonna
It's something in
dial
the
in.
story where you're trying to make a point, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're like, this is a point in the plot or in the story that either we like or is necessary so that everybody narratively knows this is important.
Yeah, it's important, and so you want to put a little flair on it.
Sure, gotcha.
Because it's an act out, or it's an act in, and we need a wide shot to to establish this location.
Okay.
And I know, and I had one of the coolest like act out shots ever, and then on one of my episodes, and then Chanda reordered the acts, and it was no longer an act out.
Right.
And so
Well,
I'm like,
understand, when we say act in, act out, we're not talking about acting.
right.
We're talking like acts
the
of...
act of the
No, I'm
acts
saying
of
like
the play.
narrative
Acts of the-
structure. Yeah.
so in network TV,
yep.
they break the show up into 6 acts.
Okay, gotcha. Yep.
And there's commercials.
And that
between
way
them.
people know the beats. Like, okay, we're on to the next thing.
Right.
But I mean,
So
it's
the
just-
act-
not a thing on a streaming show, which is most stuff.
Right. So the act in would be the top of the act. Act
Yeah.
out would be the bottom of the act.
Like
going
the
to
first
the
thing
next.
you see after the commercials is the last thing you
right.
see
And I
before
mean,
the
it's
commercials.
very evident when you are watching streaming some of the shows that have act in, act out, because it goes, you're like down and then back up.
Yep.
And, you know, it's like...
Or there'll be that ever so slight like fade to black, back up.
And or repetition. Like, oh, that beat just happened. Let's do it again on the act in.
That's
you know?
horrible. I hate that so much. Even like
Well, that's more sitcom-y.
or reality TV. You get a lot of that in reality TV.
Or possibly, I mean, I'm just saying from experience, like Dallas or something.
Yeah.
We do a lot of like act in, act out repeats.
Right.
Yeah.
And style changes over time, but you know the style of that show, so you know what pieces you know what pieces this show is going to need. But again, you're a director for hire, and it's not your vision. You need to supply the material so that if they need to cut this down to time, and you think it's this person's scene, but actually the showrunner thinks it's somebody else's scene, you kind of end up getting very standard coverage. Like everybody gets their close up, everything. You don't do something risky like, sorry, we're just going to focus on this one character the whole time.
Right.
Just,
You shoot it.
You shoot it
might-
like you want, but then
Yeah.
you get the coverage for just in case somebody else wants something different.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. You have to, which is hard because there's only so many hours in the day.
Well, and especially if you have a vision in your head of what the story is, it's like, but I really know what it is. You know, to have to also, it's a collaborative process to leave that.
It's just and you shoot your version, but you sort of cover your ass, and you get the other shot.
You said something to me when we were talking earlier that you're doing some work right now where you're doing almost everything. I mean, you're
From
not
an editorial standpoint.
From an editorial standpoint, because you're not doing the score for Grey's. You're not doing.
Well, you know, when I was at Grey's, at the early days of Grey's, I did temp the score.
Okay, but temp the score.
Yeah, I'm not creating the score now either.
Right.
I'm temping. I'm
Okay.
using existing score from other shows, other
As
episodes.
a placeholder.
as a placeholder, as a
Right.
guide for what the composer is going to create. And when we started on Grey's Anatomy, it was sort of industry standard. It had gotten away from what used to be the industry standard, which was a music editor was putting that, my guild colleague, a music editor, would put the temp music on.
Right. So you would give them a cut. They'd put the temp
And
in.
we only touched picture. But I think producers over time got impatient with that and wanted to make changes. And eventually,
eliminate a step. Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, editors were asked to be really good with putting music in and editing music. And there still was a music editor there, but they were kind of just doing the final prep for the mix.
Sure. I have a question. That opens up a question for me because, how often is your temp music choice ever actually used?
Well, on Grey's Anatomy, it's a long-running show, and the composer had made a bunch of cues for seasons 1 through 5, and almost 50% of the time.
So you've got his cues already.
Yeah, we're
Right.
maybe he people would be eventually would be, you know what, we've heard this cue 1,000 times, we need to update it. Because we were saving him time. It was his music. And if it hadn't been used in a while, we could get away with it. But he created the composer was creating the original thing.
Right.
But we were doing a lot of his work for him.
Right. And they're like, yes,
saving
that's
him
what it
time
is.
when he had to create new music. Yeah.
I mean, so you don't have I know sometimes Lost. They would sit there with the piece and instrumentalize it as it's once it's cut, they're going, and they actually have a symphony that would come for some of these things.
I mean, yeah, I don't think we only on special occasions would our composer hire live musicians.
Or say Simpsons, because the Simpsons once again would be another one where once they cut it, they have their own dedicated symphony that will just score, not the score, they will perform the whole thing as they're watching
Oh, yeah,
No.
that's more of a feature film thing.
But there are some TV that does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
There are some TV
with
that
part
does.
of like with Grey's and similar shows, the pop culture music was a big. It was almost
was
a
a big deal,
character
yeah.
in the show, you know. So that there was
Each
probably more
week,
of that.
there would be like, what song was that? The fans would be
some
asking.
bands were made.
Yeah.
You know, at Dawson's Creek, Grey's Anatomy, Gilmore Girls, like shows like that
Friends.
made bands. What?
Friends.
Friends, yeah, made bands careers because
Yeah.
they were
The
played on
style
their
of
shows.
it was defined in the pilot by Shonda, and the editor who hired me, who was an assistant editor, her taste in sort of indie, female vocal rock was
Singer,
like,
songwriter.
she helped Shonda define it, and then there became like a certain style. And we would usually be just choosing from a library that was given to us by the music supervisor. So that was the real power broker when it came to making or breaking bands. Was the music supervisor.
So what's up for David Greenspan? What is it that you want to do next? I mean, what do you have like a pet project that you've been fostering? Or?
I really don't, and I should get back to it. I mean, ever since I read that Kurosawa biography, I think I've always wanted to make a samurai film.
Sure.
So I would like to make some
Try
kind
one
of
with
samurai
8
film.
instead.
With what?
With 8 samurai. See what it would be like.
Maybe 9.
Ooh.
And I think there's room right now for that type of film because I do, because I mean you're not really seeing that, because you would see that in the probably late 70s, early 80s, you'd see a little bit of it, and now I think there's room again.
Well, I think there's always room, honestly. I'll be honest and I say that any time that there has been that type of film, like Kurosawa, either derivative or straight homage type of thing, it has generally done pretty well. So
I mean, maybe do one in space. Oh, wait.
Oh, a samurai movie in space. I think I need to focus on something. If it is a samurai movie, it has to be a low budget one because I want to get it made. But I mean, really, what I'm focusing on now is just getting more TV directing work. And, But making a side project could supercharge everything. But it's been a while.
I would say that it's interesting that people should watch Seven Samurai and see what it is, because it's not a ninja movie. It's a samurai movie.
I mean,
number
also
one.
samurai aren't ninja. So
No, they aren't. But I'm just saying it's a very character driven
Yes.
movie.
Yes.
And I think some people, it gets in the lexicon as this it's just action, but it's a well-made action. But
It takes a while to get to that action.
it does.
The recruiting sequence is great, and the final battle is a great action sequence. But
It is.
They spend a lot of time making you care about those characters.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is there any existing, like, if you had a dream property that exists right now that you would like to work on, what would it be?
You mean existing show?
Yeah. Show, movie,
Or IP,
show
just a general IP.
yeah.
You're a comic book guy. Is there one that hasn't been done that you think you could give voice to? I mean, Daredevil's.
Well, have it be a two-part question. One, something that is not currently being made that you would like to make, or something
You could do better, just so that you can make friends in Hollywood.
Well, no, something that's no. I'm not even that stupid. All right, or something that is currently, a show that it currently exists that you'd be like, man, I would love to work on that show.
Oh well, I mean, I've really enjoyed stuff like Bill Lawrence just did Shrinking.
Oh, that's a fantastic.
I would
show.
love to be
Yeah.
able to make a show like that, or work for hire on a show like
Yeah.
that. I love whenever James Gunn does anything.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So I would love to, if he does another season of Peacemaker, I'd love to edit it, or if he's letting other
yeah.
people direct, I'd love to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
Peacemaker was
Hey, it's almost like you have a microphone.
I know. Peacemaker was fantastic. I find it really fun and intriguing that you were talking about Shrinking, because I look at Shrinking and look at it as, not only is there story, right?
so much heart in the story. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, not only that, but you're working with, apex actors.
Yeah.
Right? With good material.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what that would be.
I don't
as a
know. I'd be
director.
so intimidated as a director. I'd like to cut a season and then and get it under my skin and then go in and direct. Because I don't want to tell these guys what to do.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it's I love that. If there's a show out there like that, I would love to be directing that for hire. That would be fantastic.
When my therapist asked me if I was watching Shrinking, I was like, oh, apparently it must be pretty accurate.
Did you watch The Sopranos? See, that would be even more dangerous.
Well,
You should be looking at that.
Yeah, I don't want anybody. Apparently, there was some family dynamic for me in the past that there might have been someone who would ask that, and my answer would be, there is no Sopranos. I mean, that's really the only thing that you
They're
can say.
just garbage collectors, okay?
Yeah, it's a legitimate business. Loud. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if I can express enough, David, how much we appreciate you coming in and sharing what you do with
it's
us.
fun, I think, for people to talk about themselves. So it's
It is, but it's fun for. I mean, we keep saying this, but it's fun for people to hear from people in their own voice what it's like, as opposed to, a pitch.
Right.
I'm doing this thing, or
Right.
just being totally, pedantic and this is what it does.
Yeah.
We do this and this and this. It's great to just be able to say this is the life of somebody that
Right.
does this job and tell you in their own words what the journey is.
And the candidness that you have supplied and been honest and open about, you're from. That's why we like to talk to you about your little Davy. That's why we like to do that, because you give us an insight into how a person who's just a person. You started out as a little kid. You started out on Long Island with a family, just like everybody else does, because where I live, I live in Iowa. So this area is this weird, magical place
Yes.
where real people
until
don't
you
live
live here for a while.
Right. Or even visit for a weekend.
Well, I mean,
really.
David is from a larger, right? He's from a larger place. But I mean, I came here, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, everything from the Tom Petty Free Falling song is here. And then you drive by, I'm like, I remember that from that show, and I remember hearing about this. And, it does get a little surreal at the beginning.
Yes, at the beginning.
But then after a while, it's also interesting because some of the people you meet and the contacts you made and all the things that you've accomplished or accumulated over 20-some years, you're like, 15-year-old me would be like, what the hell?
I know.
You know that person. I mean, even and you're like, I don't even know that well or whatever. Yeah. But your 15-year-old self would be blown away by what you're like. Well, that's just.
And there's still people like that.
Yeah.
That you haven't met.
Exactly. No, 100%.
There's still Harrison Ford, and there's still James Gunn and everything.
I was telling him that, I ran in, I was probably 5 years ago, I ran into Tim Curry. I'm not a person that was like, oh, hey, there's this, I love everybody, right. But I ran into Tim Curry, and I just, there's something about Tim Curry and his, charisma.
Well, when you've worn the same underwear as a guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, you cut your teeth on Rocky Horror, but, and it's like, that means something. Somebody that means something to you, then it's still every once in a while I'm in an area where that could happen, that I can just randomly run into somebody that meant something to me formatively. But then there's other times when we both were able to associate with Gene Reynolds from MASH, and MASH for me is so formative. Growing up, my family watched MASH, and to be able to say, "Oh my God, I know the guy that helped create that thing." Yeah, is like your mind just goes.
And I'm lucky because by being able to come out and visit Tony and work on projects like this with him, all I have to do is come meet Tony's friends. And that's super grounding for me because, when I have the list of the people that we're talking about, and I'm like, I get to come meet David. David's one of Tony's friends. That's all I have to do. All I have to do is talk to one of Tony's friends. And I'm a pretty social person, but when Tony does mean shit, button hooks me with Gene Reynolds, and I don't realize it's going to happen. And I spent, 10 years of my life every night at 6:30 on CBS watching MASH with my dad. And my dad and I, MASH, that was our thing, man. And so like you asshole.
I just drop things.
Oh, you just like, he'll do stuff and he'd be like, hey, Gene, I want you to meet my friend Zach. And I walk over and I'm like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, Gene. And that clicks. And I'm like, oh God, hi, sir. What was your name? Zach, sir. Well, nice to meet you, Zach. I'm like, yep, I'm an asshole.
But that's Gene. He's
But,
like,
He's the sweetest.
And really was
Yeah.
like, he was so kind, so gracious. But for me to come out here, living in podunk nowhere, but to be able to have Tony out here makes it a lot different for me.
what is it for you? When you came out
there
here?
you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
it for you? The first
Yeah.
one that was like, oh my God, I am talking to X or Y or whoever that you're like, I never thought this would be a reality.
I mean,
It's hard, I know. I mean, because we're professionals, so we work with people. But every once in a while, you're like, when I was 15, I would never have imagined what.
well, directing Harry Hamlin in the class.
There you go.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And having Harry come up and be like, hey, I want you to direct me in a scene.
Yeah.
A comedy scene.
For
I was like, oh,
background, I
feels good, yeah,
David and
yeah.
I have been, a workshop with some of our peers, and and some of them are people you would know.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
but it's a collaborative thing, and so sometimes it's weird to see somebody that you knew before.
Well, and and luckily because of that, we'll be talking to a lot of these people, and it's going to be interesting for people to hear their stories, and I look forward to it. And I cannot express, and I get a little towards the end of the episodes, I get a little repetitive, but like I really appreciate you being willing to share your experience and your journey with us, because so many people that are going to be listening to this have no idea what your job is.
It's nice for me to come and hear that, because you forget it when you're in it and you're doing it, and like you're still like not doing exactly what you want to do every day.
Right.
And there's a slog. You're like, oh, I forgot when I was just out of
When
film
you were
school.
out of film school, this
and
was
I
the
was
goal,
like, oh
right?
my God,
Right?
like I'm gonna go work on Grey's Anatomy as an assistant editor. I couldn't believe it.
That was
Like
the-
I'm going over the wall, and I was bringing a bottle of champagne to remember that
Yeah.
is nice to refuel you. And,
Right.
Well, and one thing everybody needs
grateful.
to understand is no matter what job you're in, there's still an element of it's time to make the donuts.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't
sure.
think people realize that. I think people think that once you get into the career path that you've dreamed of being, that all of a sudden there's something magical that happens that you're just like, this is great. Well, sometimes you have a bad day at work.
Yeah.
Sometimes you work with a shit coworker. Sometimes you hit a block or you're frustrated. It's like it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Sometimes you just don't get along with your boss. I mean, that's people don't understand that.
But
that's
it is
that's
good
the
to
thing,
be
yeah.
doing something that at its core you really enjoy
want.
and love.
Right.
Because even with all that, like I was like, I can't believe I have to put music on this whole fucking show right now.
Right.
But I was like, as I put a cue in and it worked, I was like, oh,
Yeah, and
that worked. Like I got excited. Like I just made that scene better. And
This is what makes me happy.
I could be building engine blocks and chipping and grinding them. Like there's
Or
all
doing
that-
accounting.
Yeah.
Doing accounting in Japan.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So David, thank you for sharing what you do with everyone.
Thank you for letting me do that.
Socials? Anything you
Oh
want?
yeah, please.
No, I mean, I guess I have a Twitter X. It's X now.
X, formerly known as Twitter.
I don't know, whatever it is, it's gonna implode.
It's kind of like the artist formerly known as Prince. Every time I see it, it's X parentheses.
No.
formerly known as Twitter.
Okay, you take that back. Because
Okay, I gave it more than it needed.
Yes,
but
you did.
But every time I see it, it's X parentheses formerly known as Twitter.
I still haven't updated on my phone because I don't want to see the X.
I
but-
did it automatically for mine.
Yeah,
all of a
me
sudden I
too.
see
Did it
this
automatically?
X.
Oh, I don't
all
have
of
it
a sudden,
set to
It's
automatic.
like all of a sudden I'm like, oh.
So
okay.
on my iPad, it's X. On my phone, it's still Twitter. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm at Beancake. At Beancake. BEANCAKE, which is a reference to my USC thesis film. That's it. Like I'm on Instagram, but I keep that account private. So
that's fair. I mean, I think that is probably healthy.
yeah. So like once my really my, public facing Twitter.
Right.
But the only time I post on Instagram is when I'm directing.
Right.
Everybody's like, "You're a full-time director." I was like, "No, that's because when you glance at my Instagram,
It's always
it looks
there.
like
Right, yeah.
it's a yearly thing."
I have
Ladies and gentlemen, that's called a curated online life.
Well, I always have this thing where sometimes when I engage with somebody, it's like, "Oh, you always know what you're talking about. You think you know everything." I'm like, "No, I just pick the times when I do it to topics that I know." It's kind of that deal. Like I curate what I talk about.
Strategery, I believe, is what a president
I don't
called
just
it.
throw things out generally. It's like,
And also, no one would give a shit if I just kept taking selfies of me with my computer in my closet when I'm editing.
You duck face and put a little peace sign. I think you might. I never know.
It's a little boring. It's not very glamorous.
I mean, I would find it amazing, David. I don't. It doesn't really matter.
It's
past
better
that.
if I'm like, standing in front of a crane on the set. Also, if I take a picture of me and I accidentally get my computer, I might be like giving away IP or something. It's really bad. Yeah.
I mean, like, wow, it's weird. He has the file and have it labeled blank character dies.
Yeah, that's bad. I've gotten in trouble for that back in the day when I was new at Twitter. Spoilers.
Oh shit. Oh, I wish. What was it?
Oh, I can't even remember, but I remember bringing flowers to the head writer at Grey's Anatomy to apologize.
I'm so sorry.
But I got her back. Like, I mean, she created Station 19.
Okay.
And she and her fellow writers were enamored with interacting with Twitter fans.
Right.
And they were probably doing it to try to drum up business.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I remember I had edited the pilot. We were deep into the season. We were like working on episode 3 or 5, and she was like supposed to be. I was like waiting to lock the show so we could send it off to everybody who was waiting for it. And I had given her the episode to give me notes on like hours ago, and I still hadn't heard from her. And she like goes live on Twitter, and she's like, okay. Station 19 questions. Ask me anything. Go. First question is from me. Can we lock 105?
I love it. Did she answer?
She was like, ha, 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 ha.
Immediately signs off.
And a few minutes later, I got a phone call telling me to lock it. I was like, yeah.
I can't wait till we find out that David is who spoiled Jeffrey Dean Morgan's death on Greenspan.
Oh, no.
No, I think that's brilliant. Well, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for being you.
And doing what you do.
Oh, okay.
Tony Forsmark.
All right, for those of you who have chosen to stick around just a little bit longer at the end of this episode, first of all, thank you. And second of all, this episode was very difficult for me to edit. It had a much more poignancy to me in that this episode is the final episode in which Tony is present on the episode. A little peek behind the curtain, there's a reason for that, both accidentally and fortuitously, is that when originally we had laid out all the episodes, we had both David and Ernesto De La, who both work in editing, and at the time, Tony had not passed yet, and I did not want to put two editors right up next to each other. So I held this one back since David had already been on a previous episode about fatherhood and released Ernesto's instead. It worked out kind of nice because I was able to release this episode the week following Tony's celebration of life. And I felt that was somewhat appropriate to celebrate him one more time. I think that it's important for everyone to know that the celebration of life truly was a celebration. So many people came together both in organizing and in celebrating, and there were so many laughs, so many good hugs, so many memories of Tony that it truly was so cathartic. And honestly, it was fun. It was fun to see people smile and to tell stories and remembrances of Tony, that they truly were celebrating his life. And that really was what it should have been. And I took a lot of comfort and warmth from that, and as did hopefully everyone else there. I refuse to speak about Tony in the past tense because I said one thing at the celebration of life, in that I'm not a religious person, so I can't in an educated or thoughtful way speak about religion, but I can speak about science. And science says that matter is neither created nor destroyed. So scientifically speaking, even if you don't believe in religion, and religion has a lot of very powerful, strong ways of remembering people and assuring you that they're still here. But even if you don't follow any religious tenets and maybe use science then instead, if matter can neither be created nor destroyed, Tony's still here. He's still here in some other form, in some other way. He has become part of the greater universe, and I'm sure that is exhausting for the universe as a whole, because he has so much energy and he has so much to offer still. I don't get really heady about what happens now, but I do take some comfort in knowing that Tony is still part of all of us. Tony cultivates so many friendships, and not just of his own, but for other people. He brings so many people from so many different walks of life together to share in life and fellowship and friendship, that it truly is an amazing thing to think that I have friends now that, were it not for Tony, I would have never met. And these friends will be my friends for the rest of my life because they are such warm and caring people. Tony has brought so many people into my life that I would have never had the occasion to interact with, and truly has helped me find my people. And that includes his wife Reagan and his daughters Delaney and Everly. They have to find a way to live in a new normal. So I hope that you all keep them in your thoughts, and if you're so inclined and believe, your prayers, as they learn to navigate this new life without Tony in a traditional way. And I guarantee you he's still there. His favorite thing in the world is being a dad. And it will continue to be his favorite thing in the world. Those girls are going to continue to feel his love for the rest of their lives. They'll feel it in so many different ways. They'll feel it purely coming from him. They'll feel it through his friends. They'll feel it through his family. So please keep Reagan and Delaney and Everly and Tony's sister Amy and his mom in your thoughts and prayers and hopes and dreams. We're all better people because we know Tony Forsmark. All of us. Thank you, Tony. Thank you so much.